Oh, I have to describe the studio itself, that when you came in the side door, that you first came to the dressing rooms, which were kind of dank because they were down in a basement kind of thing. But when you went into the studio itself, it was like going into a cathedral, where Hanya would come in and she would surround herself with her tom-toms and her gongs, and she would just start a rhythm. And she would say, start across the floor, Louise, and Louise would start doing something, and then she'd say, Mary, you join Louise. So these classes that went on for 2 hours with Hanya drumming away and calling out directions to everybody were so fabulous that we would just shriek at the end. You know, there was nothing you could do except... And then this phenomenon began to occur where people who were in ballet theater somehow heard about Hanya, Annabelle Lyon, Bambi Lynn, Ray Harrison began to come to the studio. That was also the time that Glenn Tetley came to the studio. And I remember him coming into the studio in a sailor cap with these curls, saying, I want to be a dancer. Do you think I could study here? And Hanya and I looked at each other and said, we are very happy to have you study at the Hanya Holm studio.
I think the absolute center of Hanya's genius as a teacher is that she wanted you to think. She wanted you to explore. She wanted you to discover. After the technique class, we had a theory class, and with a theory class, you could take one single element. As we did, when I tell dancers today that sometimes we turned for 2 hours, they don't believe it. But you don't feel what turning is until you have gotten to the point of fatigue, where you start to release into something and suddenly it's exhilarating. You begin to understand. We used to do arm swings for 2 hours, the same arm swing, and it's only when the body suddenly becomes tired enough that it releases and does the movement properly and beautifully. That was a marvelous and I think unique experience, that there was time to talk about these things philosophically.
That everybody speaks about space. What do we know? It's there, and very functional, but it is not to be said that it is so cut and dry that I can put it in a book and say the book will tell you. It's a thing which has to be experienced.
There was this feeling of a university of dance, which I think is really a wonderful concept, but in a professional setting, not in a university setting, in a professional New York setting, that we were also taught notation and music and some history of dance.
Hanya's University of Dance became a center for the study of labo notation, the leading system for recording movement. While the dance world applauded, President Roosevelt's War Department had to be convinced that Mr. Laban's symbols did not contain secret codes. After the war, Nick resumed studies with Hanya.
First thing that comes to mind when I think of Hanya is discipline. Discipline. If you were to put your feet in fourth position, they better damn well be in fourth position, otherwise you get a string of German oaths like you've never heard before, or have a sailor couldn't swear better than Hanya if she were angry.
Straight! 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 You are stretching here, that you get not here, it's here. Now then, lift, feel the air. You see, get a sensation of it, get an experience of air rather than of earth and hell. All right.
We improvised a great deal, and a lot of the process had to do with implanting something very strongly into your mind and making the body, as the slave of the mind, emanate that thought. Illuminate it. And you know, there were all sorts of tricks of the trade of making this happen, and Hanya had a whole bag full of them, and they were really wonderful things. I remember one very dramatic one where she had a whole line of us stand facing the cement wall, about 10 feet from the wall. And she said, now put in your mind that you're going to climb that wall, you're going to run up that wall. It says, now don't you determine when, in your conscious mind, when you're going to do it. Just put it in your mind that this is what you're going to do. And you put it in your mind so strongly that the moment will come when boom, you will go. And of course, as devoted students will do, if they're really devoted, we put it in our minds, and I'll be damned, up the wall we went.